Thank you. Well, morning, everybody. It is a great pleasure to be here. I will admit that I'm actually more than 30 years with 3M Company now, so almost man and boy. And so as a consequence, when I'm talking about innovation, which is a subject very close to my heart, I'm going to draw very heavily on my experiences with 3M. So it's a little bit about how 3M approaches innovation. And there are some things, I think, which are more general that people can take away from that in thinking about how do you innovate and how do you commercialize as much as anything, not just innovate, but commercialize in healthcare, which is a very regulated space, lots of challenges. So in order to put a bit of context to it then, I'm going to ask just a quick question. How many people know what 3M does? Anybody? Oh, you got a few, yeah, that's good. But quite a few that don't, and that's usually what I find. If you ask somebody, what does Boeing do? You know, right? They make airplanes. If you ask what Coca-Cola do, you know they make soft drinks. 3M? Depends a little bit where you come into 3M as to what you know about 3M. And so I'm going to spend a couple of slides here just explaining what 3M Company is, then a little bit about the principles, and that gives us then the background about how we do innovation and development. So, 3M, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. Started in 1902 on the northern Minnesota. I was joking last night that actually I said I was almost man and boy. I had two jobs before I joined 3M. One was coal mining in the UK when we still had a coal mining industry. Second was gold mining in South Africa. And then I came back and joined Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, and I've been looking for the mining ever since. So I obviously made a bit of a mistake there as I joined the company. Today, it's a $30 billion company, 90,000 employees, more than 100,000 patents granted to 3M. And part of the Dow 30, so a very substantial company. It operates in 5 business groups. So this is where I'm saying, depending where you come into 3M, depends a little bit what you know about 3M. Very strong industrial business, tapes, abrasives, adhesives and the like. Very strong safety business, so a lot of the face masks, 3M. And now we're getting into more general safety, fall safety, etc. We have an electronics and energy business, which is in renewable energies. There's also transmission, telecoms, etc. A consumer business, one of the ones that many people know, Post-it brand is one of our 3M products. Scotch tape, another one of our 3M products. But the piece we're going to focus on today is healthcare. And you can see it's about a $5 billion business for 3M. In healthcare, and I'll explain a little bit more about what we do in healthcare. So basically we have 3 what I call medical businesses, so infection prevention, critical and chronic care, and then health information systems, which talk about the coding and paying part of the business. A very strong oral care business, both in restorative, prosthodontics and orthodontics. And then 2 other businesses, drug delivery systems, where we're not in pharmaceuticals anymore, but we do help people deliver their molecules in novel ways. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. And then finally, food safety, because many of the things we do in healthcare also spill over into protecting the food supply chain. That's our vision. So we're about, advancing, enhancing, and innovating. It's about every life, every company, and every home. So that's the backdrop. 4 things we think that make us successful. Technology is a really key part, and I'm going to spend some time talking about that. Manufacturing, global capabilities, and brand. I'll just whiffly through this. We often put our technologies in what looks like a mock periodic table. It's kind of a fun way of thinking about technologies. But we have more than 40 fundamental technology platforms that we use. And you'll see when I talk about how we innovate that that's an important part. The technologies, the platforms are owned by the company, not by the individual divisions. So within those business units, we probably have 25 different divisions, like I said, infection prevention, critical and chronic care. They own the products, they don't own the technologies. So the technologies are common to all in 3M, and that's a very important point that I'll come back to in the way that we develop. We do have global reach, so we operate in, 80 different countries, sell in 140. We manufacture in different parts of the world. We have R&D in different parts of the world now to stay close to our customers. And the way we describe our company is we're a science company applying science to life. Okay, so, it's kind of a big, bold statement. What does it mean? Well, that's where I'm going to switch now into saying, here's some of the building blocks of the way that 3M innovates and develops. And I say I'm talking about the way 3M does it, but many of the things I talk about, the people, the collaboration, the bringing together different elements are common to all. Maybe you don't have them all within one company if you're an SME. Maybe you need to leverage through organizations like Medilink to find partners to help you fill some of the gaps. But I think the principles are pretty much the same. So, the first is our people and the collaborative culture. One of the myths in 3M is we had a gentleman by the name of William McKnight, who was associated with the company either as the president or chairman of the board for almost 60 years in the formative time of 3M. So you can see from 1929 to the 1960s, that's when 3M was finding its feet, growing, deciding what it was going to do. And he had many cultural things that stay with the company today. One of the most important is he said, employ good people and leave them alone. Don't put a bunch of bureaucracy, don't tell them what they should do, don't punish them when they make mistakes, because they will make mistakes, but get the best people and let them do their jobs. And that's still a tremendous philosophy within 3M today, and I think it's so important. We often use an expression in 3M that it's better sometimes to beg forgiveness than ask permission. So just get on, get it done. Because another very important concept that he introduced was what we call the 15% time. And what that means is everybody, all of our researchers are encouraged, not just allowed, but encouraged to spend 15% of their work time working on things that interest them that are not directly related to what we pay them to do. So it's an interesting concept, because if you allow somebody with a great idea to work on it and use some of the resources that we have within 3M, it's amazing what comes out of that. So there's just a couple of examples. Cubitron abrasive wheels, which is almost like a self-sharpening abrasive, came from one of those. And window films, which we use for energy control and for privacy in cars, etc. Those are both concepts that came from 15% time. It's not a time card metric, so you just offer the opportunity. If people don't wish to take it, well, then that's fine, but there are very few people, I can tell you, within 3M that don't use that opportunity to develop their own ideas. Secondly, the collaboration piece. Technologies are owned by the company, not by divisions. If I have an idea, especially one of my 15% ones, and I need some help in an area that I'm not familiar with, I can pick up the phone and talk to a scientist in 3M, and I guarantee that he will help me and be pleased and proud to help me trying to figure out my idea. That's a very important piece. That ability to share ideas, to not get turfy about what we do is really an important part of how 3M innovates. Insights from customers and markets. So how do we figure out what it is we're going to work on, what it is we're going to develop? And for us, it's very much about insights from our customers. 3M, many years ago, in the time of two-tone cars, developed masking tape. And it came about because one of our scientists was in, I think Ford Motor Company, could be one of the others, and looking at the painters trying to get crisp lines in two-tone cars. And they were using standard glues and papers. And so every time they took the glue and the paper off, it tended to damage the paint, destroy the paint line. It was just horrible. And so that concept of using a pressure-sensitive adhesive with easy removal, putting it onto a substrate, a paper backing for masking tape, created the very first masking tape. And it's a very similar situation. I'm thinking, Tegaderm dressings, probably 35 years ago now, we sent some of our scientists into hospitals just to follow nurses, doctors, in the OR, in the ICUs, just watch what they do. And after a week, one of our scientists, who's still with us today, Steve Heinecke, came to the conclusion that nurses spent a lot of time lifting up a dressing to see is the line okay, is the wound okay, and putting it back down again. And of course, when you take it up and put it down, it never really sticks very well. It's quite painful for the patient. It's a waste of time, really, right? I mean, it would be much better if you could just look and see what's going on at the site of the insertion or the wound. And that's how the concept of clear film dressings was invented 35 years ago by 3M Company. And that's our Tegaderm range of dressings today. And now, we've got many developments, many ads. We put CHG disinfectants with it now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but the concept comes from really understanding where the customer's pain point is and then translating it into something which is useful. We do also like to bring our customers into 3M. So in the same way this morning, you've probably seen some things that you didn't know 3M did. When we bring customers into our customer innovation centers, and we have them all around the world, including the UK, we expose them to some of our technologies. The adhesion, film technologies. And very often, as people walk around and they see an application in a different industry, they think, wow, I wonder if that could solve my problem here. And so that's another great way of sparking ideas to help us guide our development activities. Sustainability is a really key issue for all of us now. For us, it's about energy and energy conservation. It's about air and water protection. And as I mentioned already, we have a business in protecting the food chain to make sure that it's safe for consumption. So the technology platforms, 46 of them we have. Sometimes we add another one in, but that's where we are today. It's all about materials, processing capabilities, and applications. The way we look at it is two routes. One, you take one of those technology platforms and look at the different industries it can go into. That's this example. So adhesives. We make adhesives in electronics and energy, securing some of your iPhone or tablet screens are typically adhered with a 3M adhesive. Industrial, we hold cars and planes together with our very high bond adhesives. In Scotch-Lite reflective, that's what sticks the stuff together. I've already mentioned Post-it notes and command strips. And then, of course, in healthcare, it's things like medical tapes, dressings, stick-to-skin. So all slight modifications of a basic technology of adhesives. But the other approach then is to take several of those technology platforms, put them together to make a product which is better than if you had just one or two alone. And they're the examples of things like dental restoratives and adhesives, and like I've already mentioned, the medical dressings in the many forms, some to stick stronger, some to stick less, some more gentle, depending on what the application needs. This is just another example of the way the innovation continues, right, through the cycle. So way back in the day, we invented the first press and breathe inhaler. And that was successful for a number of years. The reality, though, is if you're a patient suffering an attack, it's quite difficult to coordinate the press and the breathe, right? I mean, it's not easy. So the logical thing is, why don't we make a breath-activated inhaler? So that was the next development in 1993. So now, as you take the breath, that activates the inhaler a lot simpler. And that's been a hugely successful product for many companies around the world using our delivery system. And now in 2016, we just launched what's essentially the intelligent inhaler. So this now has a wireless connection, can provide information about when the patient uses it, how the patient uses it, how effectively the patient took the dose, what other conditions existed as they were doing it, or indeed, it tells the clinician about non-compliance, right? I mean, it's very difficult to make people well if they don't comply with the drug regime that you give them. So that's just another example of where the market need exists, you satisfy it, but then you get to the nuances, and over time, it's a process of continuous improvement. I've mentioned already sustainability is really important. I think it's going to be a huge differentiator for the future. In healthcare, we are recognized by this organization, Green Health, and we've now been certified as a company that's concerned with sustainability in healthcare. It carries on. So this is a big new $190 million, I think, laboratory building we just completed in our campus in St. Paul. It's just about putting more money into R&D. We spend almost 6% of our revenues we put back into R&D. So we spend a lot of money on it. I told you already we've got more than 100,000 patents. The fun fact about this building is it employs more than 100 of 3M's technologies and products. So this is using our own stuff in our own buildings, in terms of the lighting, in terms of securing the windows, in terms of reflective materials, etc. So, and then the final piece, I think, is that we're all conscious that we need to be giving back all the time. So we spend a lot of time in our innovation centers bringing in school children, young engineers, people who are interested to spark the idea that actually science and innovation and development are really important characteristics for the future. So that's a little bit about the way 3M operates. And as I say, I didn't mean it to be, I don't want it to be an advertorial for 3M, but I can't really think about innovation without sharing some of the thoughts I've had with the time I've worked for 3M. But I do believe many of those concepts, the ability to take good people and then not tell them what to do, but let them figure out what they need to do. That ability to share and collaborate is so important because we don't know all of the things ourselves. And then to be really clear about what to innovate. Customer-inspired innovation. Customers don't know what they don't know. So if you observe the way they operate and you observe the way they work, you can really make a difference to how they do their job and the outcome for patients, which is, for me, the fun thing about being part of the healthcare industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Cheers.